Good afternoon, and welcome to the July 9, 2024 meeting of the Niagara Perry School Board Committee as a whole. We have a number of things on the item, and visitors and board members, I'd ask that you silence your cell phones. It's not to interrupt the meeting. Ms. Rebels, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Danzy.
Here.
Mr. McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Benefield.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Present.
Mrs. McGaskey. Here. Ms. Palmer. Ms. Phelps.
Here.
Ms. Harvey.
Here.
Mr. Fradu. Mr. Nicholson.
Here.
And Ms. Page. Quorum.
Good deal. Thank you, ma'am. Board members, thank you very much for supporting Lakeview High School and Junior High with these wonderful shirts. And thanks to the administration for all their wonderful support of the board. Board members, I do want you to take a look at Mr. McGuire down there sporting that orange shirt. He thought it was going to be another school. No, I'm just picking on this. Okay. Superintendent Eloy, would you like to?
Yes, sir. So I only have two kind of major things. July is kind of this in-between time. We're finished with summer school. We're obviously prepping for the new school year, so very busy. But two major things I want to bring to your attention, and then if there's any questions about anything else, I'll be more than happy to discuss that. Assembly, I talked to Dr. Pope with LSBA, as y'all are aware. Over a year, we've been revamping our entire policy manual, and that process is now coming finally to a conclusion. So we will receive the final draft of section 900. We should receive that any day, and that will allow us to do, we have to do two things in the next month. We will have to go through 900, make changes where necessary. The policy committee will have to adopt 900, put that into the entirety of policies 100 through 900. Then at the same time, Ms. Kanika has been implementing all the changes and amendments, or whatever you want to call it, to what y'all have been doing in policy committee. And so we will then have to have another meeting, so two policy committee meetings, one to finalize 900, a second policy committee meeting to go through the entirety of 1 through 900 to make sure what we will be bringing to the full board is what you want to go to the full board.
And what has changed since we did the initials?
Exactly. What that'll mean is in August, the full board will have a presentation from the policy committee of an entire revamped policy manual, which I will try to get to you as soon as possible once the policy committee finishes their work. That way you'll have hopefully a couple weeks to go through and look at all that. Realize we haven't made massive changes to policy. What we've really done is made policy more trimmed down and cleaned it up. And so that'll give the full board time. And so in August you will vote on that. But at the same time, because the legislature has been so busy, we will have probably about 6 or 7 additional policies. But what that'll mean is in August you will have a brand new policy handbook, and we'll also be adopting the Assembly platform. Now, Ms. Kanika would not be happy, and I don't think any of us would be happy, to just immediately switch from board docs to Assembly. So there will be a transition period. We have not fully decided how long that will take, but I'm thinking the hope would be that maybe by Christmas time, if all goes well, we would be able to transition fully out of board docs to Assembly as both our agenda platform and as our policy platform. So this has been a huge endeavor. Thank you for the entire board, everyone who's been involved. Ms. Kanika, would you like to add?
This, the policy where that manual was about this thick, it's now about this thick.
And the other exciting part is you will be the first board in Louisiana to finalize and do this. So as policy-wise. And so Dr. Pope has already said that she's going to want to use us as a resource to spread the gospel of policy, of Assembly and policy best practice statewide. On to the next piece, and this is really my only other piece, but it's a little lengthy, but it won't be longer than normal. If you look on updates, there is an attachment. That attachment is education bills passed in 2024 regular session. I'm going to briefly hit some high notes, some things that you need to be aware of, but I would strongly suggest that you read through all this. I highlighted the ones that I thought were probably the most controversial or substantial. So first off, Act 400, that is student discipline action. Basically, there are some greater requirements for removing students from classrooms when they pose a safety risk or they are habitually disruptive. And then requires rather than just authorizes parental conferences when these events happen. So again, we know that the governor and Dr. Brumley are getting more involved in student behavior. That's not necessarily a bad thing at this point, but it does mean more work on our school staff and district staff. Act 313, this is the bill that says you can't have cell phones in schools. As you already know, we already have that, so Governor Landry just reiterated what we were already doing. Act 337, that is the bill that beefs up mandatory expulsions. And I think Jennifer Ingram at our last board meeting kind of referenced that, so you're already somewhat aware. Act 352, again, Jennifer referenced this. That is some discipline stuff in regards to vaping. Then we skip a whole bunch and we go to Act 331. I was just talking to Ms. Phelps about this before the board meeting. It requires every public and approved secondary school to print 988 on IDs. 988 is the line to call for suicide prevention, the suicide hotline. So we are mandated that phone number is on every school ID. Now, mind you, not every school has IDs, so it's only on the ones that we have IDs for. Jumping ahead to home study, as several of you have been with the board for a while are aware, this has been somewhat of a hot button topic. Act 715 now requires or authorizes students enrolled in home study programs to be allowed to participate in extracurricular and athletic programming at schools. Now, you might say, I thought that was unconstitutional. It previously was. What they did, the reason it was previously unconstitutional was because they were telling a private entity, LHSAA, what to do. What they've done now, as politicians are wont to do, they circumvented LHSAA and they said, school districts are not allowed to be a part of an organization that does not allow home study students to participate. So we're still waiting for some more information on that, what that looks like. Students would still have to try out. It doesn't mean that they're automatically granted the ability to be on a team if there's tryouts. It means that they have access to be able to do that. So there's going to be a pivot for us because, as you well know, we have not allowed that. So something to be aware of. Act 676, I'm sure you're all aware.
Can we
go ahead.
Hang back on 644?
Yes.
Now that means they can try out for the team. That doesn't necessarily mean a team can play one of our teams.
Correct.
So we're only granting access
to be on
to be on the team. Okay.
but we decide who we play or don't play.
That a homeschool person or entity will be allowed to try out for any public school.
Yes, sir. And this also extends to extracurriculars. And so I have questions about, from the lawyers, what is extracurricular versus, for instance, some people may deem strings to be extracurricular. Well, that is a curriculum, that's a class during the day. Are we actually saying that we're going to be mandated to have students be able to come on campus during school hours, participate? So there's still some stuff to be figured out. I think we're going to have an update probably at the school law conference, which is early October, September, late September, and we'll be able to give you some updates. But at the very least, we cannot just have a moratorium against it.
It also states that the student who lives in the school's attendance zone.
Yes.
So that's kind of another parameter.
Yeah, and that goes in line with current LHSA. They have, if they're in high school, they have to have a school of, what's it called? Their home-based school.
So are you referring to like ROTC, 4-H?
It's possible all those things.
Those
yes,
type of
ma'am.
activities where sometimes you were having that activity during school hours?
They did not spell it out exactly in the law. They just said extracurricular activities, but that's why we're waiting on the lawyers to kind of give us greater guidance on what that does and does not include. Fun times. All right, Act 676, we're all fully aware because we've been talking about it on Facebook and the Advocate and the Times and everything. And that's the 10 Commandment display. When anyone asks me, just so they're aware, Dr. Eloy, when are you going to put those up? I say, and we're not because we're not. We're not because we cannot use school funds to do that. It has to come from private entities. So I cannot take any action until someone were to provide the funding. At the same time, there's now a federal lawsuit against it, and we anticipate that there's going to be some sort of delay, injunction, what have you. And at the same time, it is not to be implemented until January of 25. So there is no impetus right now for us to do anything in the district because we're not being, in order to follow the law, we can't do anything right now.
Did
So
they file an injunction?
they have not filed an injunction, but it's in a federal lawsuit, and more than likely, there's going to be challenges that keep this
I thought
in
they were
purgatory.
supposed to file it this morning. That's what one of the news channels was saying they were supposed to file it today, the injunction.
Well, y'all may be up on the news quicker than I haven't seen that yet, but that very well may have happened today.
Yeah, I don't know if they did today, but they were supposed to file the injunction
Yeah.
today.
And again, even if everything goes through, we don't take action until January, and then a private entity has to provide the cost of putting those up. So we're very much in limbo right now. And I know there's very passionate feelings on all sides of that matter, and I'm staying out of it. Act 428, we have to switch to a 10-point grading scale. So you will see updates to pupil progression that says everyone has a 10-point grading scale. Apparently one of our legislators got mad, probably because their child made a B, and they decided to make it uniform. Skip ahead a little bit.
Right now, will that affect our 1.5 rounded up to a 2? Think about it.
Well, actually, it would be more helpful because it's a 7-point grading scale.
And we'll lower it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, move forward.
Act 311, I'll kind of skip because y'all are aware of that. We talked about Act 311, paying teachers. And let me just preface all this. And I said this last time, I'm going to say it again. There is no intent on our part to not pay teachers. But there are traditional roles that teachers have always done, whether it's parent-teacher conference that they've never been paid for. I wasn't paid for. None of us who are educators were paid for. That we don't expect to pay for. Now, that being said, we felt very much, and the board agreed, that we needed to do something to expand what we were paying people for some of these outside duties. So the first thing we did was to expand, we were not paying club sponsorships. So that's the first thing we've done, and we want to look at that year in and year out. The one thing that is paramount in this is that you cannot disrupt their 45 minutes of planning time, and that is an accumulation of 45 minutes times 5 days, which I think is 225 minutes. The caveat to that is the lawyers and all the legal folks are telling us right now that planning with a teacher, supporting a teacher, cluster time, does not infringe upon that planning time, which I know is a highly controversial opinion to teachers, but it's planning, not completely like, I hate to say it this way, but free time, as it were, or off hour. We used to call it the off hour. And so there's a difference between planning and being off. All right, Act 247. This prohibits the alternative pathway for graduation if you fail the LEAP. If you recall, there was that appeals process, that waiver. Mr. Miller got rid of that. Then we also have Act 1, which is our Gator program. These are the educational savings accounts. Again, sky is not falling. The governor put this into place. It's in action. Doesn't go into place for another year, and they have to fund it. And no one knows where the money's coming from. So
And the rules are not clear.
the rules are not clear. Bessie and Dr. Brumley have to determine that. But again, where's the money coming from, especially in a year that I think they're projecting a $400 million shortfall. So don't worry about it until we need to. Act 680, this is use of pronouns and so on and so forth. It basically states that a teacher doesn't have to use a child's preferred pronouns or preferred name, and it goes deeper into that, but you can read that, and it goes back to these social issues that we're very much in the midst of in public education right now. Student Assessment, Act 650, this is that whole thing where in math and ELA, if a student's not where they need to be, we have to retain them or give them these other avenues by which to get scores up, otherwise they would be retained.
Which is to,
Yes, ma'am, all those things. Act 635, it basically allows a workaround that if you pass certain sections of the ACT, you don't have to take the LEAP test if you score high enough, which I think is great. Act 649 expands the Steve Carter Literacy Program, which we love, and it expands it to mathematics as well, because the next push, if you don't know yet, from the state, they've done the reading revolution, the literacy refresh. Now they're going to do the same thing with math. Act 745, we're having to work very quickly on, because basically we have to provide behavioral health services for students, which I think we all want to do, but this is a very formulaic, like if they have an issue, we have to show what we did in terms of providing that behavioral health. Ms. Pinckney and Ms. Ingram and their team are very much getting things ready for a response to Act 745. Act 211, computer science is now part of the curriculum. I'll just jump over that. Act 681, this is another social issue thing. We talked about pronouns. This bans teachers from discussing gender identity and sexual orientation with students. Again, fun stuff. Act 115, this is awesome. It now mandates that we have to provide sick leave banks for teachers that can be shared. So Jessie Church is using up all her leave, and I want to be a kind soul and contribute to the group bank. She can then use that, which we've been talking about for a while as something we wanted to do, but now it's state law, so we have to do it. Act 394 allows more reemployment for retired teachers. Act 193, this is about me. Y'all have to put in my new contract. Whenever you do that, you don't have. We're still waiting to hear if you have to submit new contracts in response to this. But student achievement, specifically in literacy and math, have to be now included in superintendent contracts, which I think actually y'all kind of already did.
Yeah,
But there's some specificity to the percentage and stuff like that. This is one for y'all. Act 204 requires local elected school board members to meet certain criteria. They actually increase the criteria. I think before you had to be a resident and be able to be literate. Now you have to have a high school diploma, and that's the only addition. So I think all of y'all are good.
I hope this is what.
And that is my very quick rundown of this insane packet of all the stuff. Again, that was the high points. There's other stuff that's very pertinent,
Well,
but I didn't want to read it all.
one more, and Mr. Cozad brought it up. If you look, Act 539 requires certain public bodies to broadcast their meetings live via television or the internet. So we've already been doing that. We crossed that finish line.
Yes, but there's one other question that has to be answered, because John Geis emailed me about this about an hour ago. We have to, because we have a parish larger in size than 25,000 residents. The question is board retreats and board trainings that we sometimes have done, but we don't broadcast those because they're honestly kind of boring. Mundane. The question is, do we have to start doing those? And we haven't broadcast like subcommittees. The question now is, will we have to do that?
If there's no action taken on any of that, is that part of?
John is working right now to determine that, because there's some unanswered questions in regards to that. So
Okay.
we shall see, but we're at least ahead of the game in the sense that we've been doing this for what, 4.5 years now, if not 5. So that is my superintendent report for this month. Lots and lots of stuff going on with education statewide that, as I tell people, it affects us, but we like to create our little Natchitoches bubble, and we're going to do what's best for us while still complying with the law, and we're going to protect ourselves and do what's best for our kids and our teachers and our staff.
And we can make that available on our website,
Yeah, so we can.
especially the highlighted parts, because
Yeah. all this can be shared with Ms. Paris if she can probably do a news article type thing. It's on board docs right now, which is accessible from the website, but I'll talk to her tomorrow and see what she thinks about access.
Okay.
I think this is provided for you know, this change, right?
This it is, but I'll tell you, this was what they do for superintendents. This was done by an old child welfare and attendance officer. His whole job is he compiles it in one nice little packet, because even if the advocate, follow them, I mean, you cannot find all the stuff. You have to get on the Louisiana legislature website, and even that's not.
And make it make sense.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and take over business with the bus traffic?
Yeah. So Mr. Kozad was ready to provide a quick update on bus trackers, if he doesn't mind.
Physical hardware should be arriving late next week or the following week. We got to get those installed. We have proof of concept for the app integration into the website and into our app. Basically, the key function that parents will need to know is what the route number their student rides is, and then they can be able to click on a link that has that route number and pull up a live view of where the bus is at.
Okay, so we'll see live view. Will it be like a GPS where it says projected arrival time?
No, we're not doing any sort of geofencing. We thought that that would increase the complexity too much beyond what we can manage without greatly increasing cost to the district and probably needing someone full-time just to manage that aspect of it. Trying to coordinate all the addresses with the parents, and then basically that would also make it so they have to log in to see it so it can identify that user with it. It just adds a ton of complexity that I feel like a lot of parents, when I'm thinking about how this is going to get used, aren't going to be on it 24/7. When their bus is late, they want to just be able to pull up and see where the bus is. And that's why we thought going with the route that we're going with no login required would, in that pinch when you're worried about your kid, you just being able to click on it and see where the bus is would be a more beneficial feature.
And just a heads up, Mike and I and all the directors have spoken about this. We haven't made a decision yet, but we're thinking we're not going to go live with this until maybe the second or perhaps even after 2 weeks of school. Because if y'all remember that first 2 weeks of making sure the right kids are on the right bus, we don't want to roll this out and people will be like, oh, that's great, but I think my bus route's 24 and 24 is over in Roebling and I live in Clutcheville. So we want to roll it out when we know all the inputted or the data that's been input is correct and factual, so that way parents are getting a readout that is correct and factual.
Well, we're getting very close to it. That's
Route
good.
changes, just a few come now.
It's not so much that, it's more about, the routes don't change so much, it's more about the kids who are on the routes. And so the data that they'll see on there, they'll always know which bus, but it's about them knowing
Where they on?
which route their student's in. And that sometimes can be delayed because of moves and different things. And so there's a chance, I would love to make it live on day one, but our view is this is I think Ms. Reba started all this, and this is such a good thing. I didn't mean it that way, but you know what I mean. No, but this is such a good thing that I think people have wanted for so long, and we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by rolling it out haphazardly just to get it that first 2 weeks.
Well,
We'd rather have all
we
the
know our
data.
routes
Right.
sometimes, that first day, yeah. it goes-
And I also want to add the solution that we've ended up going with is no contract, no obligation. We pay monthly. If we determine after this year that it's not the solution for us and you guys want to do something full scale, more robust and go with Echo, then we can send all the stuff back and not be out money. So yeah, think of it as a large scale pilot this year to see if this is going to be what we want. But I feel like I've done my due diligence and this is the lowest cost solution to the district that will provide the ability for any parent to see where that kid's bus is.
And if the parents use it and they see where their bus is along the route, and they do that several times, they can pretty much gauge time and where they'll be if everything runs
Well,
smoothly.
and like Mike said, the majority of parents who are going to use this are going to use it only when
The bus is late.
the bus is late. Yeah. So
So about what is the estimated cost to the district for this?
$13,000 per year. And we can compare that to some in the 70s and 80s of other software features, you know, the really high-end ones that would need staff to man and monitor.
No, there's some ones that have so many bells and whistles. The $70,000 range gets you where and we didn't want to do this to drivers either, where each kid has a scanner, like a little ID badge, which is another cost, and literally the bus driver has to scan them onto the bus. And so the parent gets a notification that they're on the bus. Then they scan them to get off the bus. That was just logistically felt like a nightmare.
So it's a starting point,
Yeah.
and it's not a bad cost to the district.
It doesn't have to be the end of the road, but I feel like it's the most reasonable place to start for our first go at live tracking buses. And then maybe in future contracts with Echo Ride, it can be put in there that that needs to be a requirement of the
Absolutely.
contract for any, not just Echo Ride, but any bus provider, that they have to provide that. And then we're not talking about needing to add district personnel just to manage a full-time website of monitoring buses.
True.
Let's start with requiring the ID badges, will it start in junior high?
Junior high is typically where we have them, but not every junior high does utilize them. NGH, I know, definitely has them, but I don't believe Marville, Provençal, Goldana, or, well, Fairview's not junior high, or Magnet utilize them. We don't have a policy that requires it. The only time that everyone's using them is at the high school level. Every high school has them, but the junior highs, it's just, I guess it's been probably tradition, history, or preference.
I think it'd be in junior.
Yes, ma'am. Well, and to that point, NJH is a larger junior high than the rest of them, so.
Board members, how many of you have heard comments from parents that I cannot believe school is almost ready to start?
I said,
Okay. Superintendent Eloy and Mr. Cozad, thank you for that update. Informational reports. We'll start with Ms. Page.
yeah, well, and I apologize. We've made a determination that Ms. Rochelle and Ms. Hicks' reports are going to be always the second Tuesday. So that's why we skipped you.
Okay. Do I need to go over there?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Now, if there's any
I
questions.
don't really have anything to add.
It's been a busy
Yes, sir.
month.
Yes, sir.
Are you doing a new teacher orientation?
Yes.
Do you have dates for it yet, or no?
In July, 31st versus
Yes.
What's the date again?
July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd.
And I will be.
Can we pop in and take a-
You're actually all invited to the lunch the day that's typically Sweeties provides our lunch, and y'all are invited, and I'll get that invitation out to y'all.
Will this be the last one we do at the event center?
Yes, because we will be able to utilize that building over there. So very exciting.
Keep those freeloaders out of there. Board members, any questions for Ms. Page? Okay, good deal. Mr. Watson.
All right, I pulled it up here. This is as of the end of May, the budget here, general fund. The actual revenue is, it all looks in order. Not really concerned about everything. You'll notice the child nutrition currently is showing a positive balance here. We still have summer school, which I think actually summer school, I'll let Ms. Hicks address this next week, but generally summer school is a profitable time for child nutrition. So I think we're going to end the year strong in child nutrition. Of course, now the reason I can't talk about the general fund is, you remember now we still have the June, July, August, and sales tax payrolls to be added and all this, and so just to let you know that that's why I don't want to come across the finish line yet with that. It looks like we're doing okay. Title I, once again, the number at the bottom with expenses will be eventually the number of revenue once all the receivables are turned in at the end of the year. ESSER 3 formula. And then this is ESSER ESSER3, another function of ESSER3. I don't know if this is incentive or this looks like this may be ED, but this all looks like it's in good order.
Yeah, I think Ms. Rachel's gonna be talking with some more specificity next week.
Usually Ms. Rachel's talking about our future. This is what's happening right now. So are there any questions regarding the budget?
Well, Mr. Wasker, were they selling cars again? Do we have
Well,
sales tax?
no. It seems to be stagnant out there. So in the sales tax report, this year is complete, so we are down 6.39% for the year. So obviously we have budget adjustments that are going to be made at the next board meeting after summer school numbers have come in. But one of the things we will be adjusting is sales taxes. If you will notice, the last several months is where the bulk of the down is. Y'all see that? Like here, we're down and up and down a little bit in the first 6 months, but it's been really hurting out there in Natchitoches Parish in the last 6 months, sales tax wise. You can get a different answer with the city. I think the city sales tax I'm hearing is up a little bit.
Their collections are up.
Their collections are up, but remember, we're a conglomeration, an average of what's going on in the entire parish.
Honestly, February and April is what really kind of kicked our tails.
So, anyhow, I would also say that this year is a combination as well as some refunds. Apparently, that some vendor got overpaid their sales taxes to the sales tax, and they're now removing that from some of our collections. It's not a big amount of money, but that came to an end in June as well. But overall, the month that scared me was April. But I think I'm going to project in the next year's budget a flat growth, maybe slightly down. So, are there any other questions about sales taxes?
Sir. Go ahead.
Was that, okay, the next one? Okay, I am required by law now to report to the board on any of the audit findings. The audit that I'm going to report for is the last year's audit of June 2023, which was presented to the board in January. So I actually listed here the updates of what we're going to do. The first condition was the internal structure with the student activity fund, and you can see our response to that. But basically, signatures, a lot of out in the field, getting signatures, the secretary doing direct without a signature and oversight from the principal, and if the principal is doing that, making sure the principal signs off. There's just some, you take the duties and split it up, and it needs to be a complete separation of duties. And this is what this talks to. So my answer to this one, and I have to report this to you, as to the progress of this, is due to the limited staff size at the schools, ideal segregation of duties is not always practical. However, we continue to assess and improve internal controls where possible. All bank recs are reviewed and approved by both school secretary, bookkeeper, and the principal, and are also submitted by the district's internal auditor. That is never done for review and monitoring. Where ideal segregation of accounting functions are not possible, review function by the principal and/or district accounting staff is implemented to mitigate the risk as practical. But I will tell you that we are fortunate to have hired Deborah Dunn, who's a CPA, and he used to do audits of school boards. So she knows exactly what they're trying to address here, and I will have to say, that paragraph is mostly her writing. So but she has already been all over this, actually before the audit findings came out. So I want to assure the board that we have been addressing this issue in a very, I would say, very effective way. I would like to, I can't always say, but I would hope that this audit finding will no longer be a part of our future. The second finding was internal control of our finance reporting. Basically, the concern is the fact that we don't give the board a balance sheet or cash reporting. So, our efforts to resolve this, which will be still ongoing, we have hired a consultant named Stephen Stanfield, who's a 42-year finance person in school finance, strictly related to just school finance. He is consulting with us about how to get this fixed.
Because this is about a 40-year traditional problem, correct?
This is, the problems that this goes back to, that we have discovered, is that there are some compliance issues with some other areas that we are going to bring up to speed. It's not really a big deal, but we just want to get in total compliance, and as we turn over every little area of concern, we are finding some ways we can, as a business department, be more efficient as well. But I really could never tell you what the exact balance sheet looked like, because the program sadly had never been programmed in such a way to present one. So we have now fixed that. It is going to be attached. It'll be in the next document that I give you. I'll show to everybody. But anyhow, I'll write this one, read this one. Efforts continue to improve the completeness and detail of financial information available to management and the board. District's funds and accounting structure are being revised to simplify reporting functions within the accounting department are being reassigned. Evaluation of functions and additional training are being provided to the district staff, and the district's consultant, which is Stephen Stanfield, is developing more comprehensive reporting, financial reporting to better inform management and board members of the current fund balances and cash balances. So that would, like, if you want to know what the exact fund balance is for your BRE at Marthaville, I could just, I'll be able to hopefully print it out and just hand it straight to you. It'll be more clear. It looked all kind of congested in the past for you. He's helping us get that all cleaned up for you.
So
That relates to District 7 and all the districts. Yes, ma'am.
we'll receive that like on a monthly during the school session?
I'm going to present to you a balance sheet that we're going to do. We are going to massage it based on what y'all ask me to present in the future. Right now, we're just trying to get what we need to get as a requirement of this finished. We still have a ways to go because the
So it'll evolve.
So it's going to evolve. Our intention is that this is probably going to be an evolutionary thing as we are able to provide more complete reporting to y'all. Y'all have us ask for more clear or better reporting, more obvious, things that don't look accounting confusing. You know what I mean?
Do you want to
more
show
layman, present it in a manner in which any layman can do. Because I
want to show them the first one?
Yes, I'm going to show you the first one here. I don't know if I finished reading. But anyhow, by the way, Act 370. Yes, sir.
In comparison, I know you talked to some of your compadres around the state. Where are we as opposed to where they are? Are we ahead, behind, or?
I would say in some ways, in fact, we're addressing these issues. We've been behind for many, many years. Part of this is we have a software that, if you know anything about accounting, you're not supposed to be able to post an unbalanced entry. Our accounting software will allow it. And so there are some deficiencies in accounting software. So our future will be probably migrating to a new software, which will hopefully improve this as well. But we have naming problems. And some districts I know out there, and I can name a few, are way ahead. We are going to catch up really fast. I'm very excited about having Stephen Stanfield to help us move really fast. He's also one of the consultants that Baton Rouge calls on in the event they need to pass some sort of accounting type of thing down in Baton Rouge. They call on what's it like, how's this going to impact school boards and school finance accounting. And he's actually written a lot of it, helped them write some of their state legislation. But I'm excited to have him. I feel like he's been actually helping us for a year, and the more he digs into it, the more problematic we find. But some problems we find. These are all fixable. These are not audit findings, but they're just fixable, making us more efficient. And I believe that y'all are going to be real proud. At least a year from now, we'll be really proud about how far we've come. And I hope to see y'all will see a difference in how we report things. I will also say, I don't know if this is on your list of acts a moment ago, Act 370 was recently enacted, and will also change the look of all the reports we're trying to get up to speed. So Act 370 is happening as well. Also, there was an act, I don't know if it was this year or last year, all contracts that we signed in the business department we're in the process of now starting to post them on the website. That's required, that we post all the contracts that we sign. Okay, so the next thing that's up is, it's called 035 balance sheet. 035 is the district number. And this is what the balance sheet looks like. The general fund is in this column, right here, the first column. So this shows, now, I would like to say there are no capital assets on here, like our building values, that's gonna be really in the audit report. This is the flow of cash, okay? So you have debt service, well, special revenue, that's where your BRE funds are. This is your debt service, and the capital projects is only happening when we raise bonds. That number will go up and down and be, that column is used when we're doing the build out. Our last paving of the NACA Central parking lot basically concludes our bond money from 2018. Y'all remember, but it was all delayed too. They showed up in the scene, we started building out, and we had COVID delays, and it's been a long road to finish it off. But pretty much as of this June, we have spent all of our bond money, and that's what this column here is all about. And so these are our liabilities. Once again, these are cash liabilities. And these are our restricted fund balances and everything. So if y'all, like I said, if y'all need this explained in the future, I can certainly go into that. But this will be evolving. Particularly, we have to come into compliance with the new Act 370. Okay? Cool. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Mr. Shirley.
Yes, sir. Sorry, guys, I didn't get my stuff on board, so I had to give you that. We have a lot of construction and projects starting to kick off now with the new BRE. Lakeview, we have some lighting going on, painting, parking lot, concrete. Coach Step has gave me his wish list. Went over it with Mr. Frady, and we're kind of coming up with our plan there. NACA Central had a few things go on. We completed the parking lot. The painting and the flooring has been completed. Marthville, we're out there looking right now at some redoing their where their old basketball court was. We're trying to give them a new basketball court put in, since we had to fix the drainage and tear the old basketball court up in order to do it. The most important thing Ms. Rashell has actually helped us with is Esther has, we have a project that we have out, we put out the bid, you guys let us put it out. The actual price come in at 1.14 million. Which is, what's that?
They're going to be approved.
Yes, y'all will be approving it here next week. Ms. Rashell has got us $1 million of those dollars. We thought we were at 700,000. We now have figured out we were at $1 million. So we will get about 90% of those units completely done. So we will only have like 10 left to change out once this is over with. So
We can do that through BRE over the next
right,
2 years.
right. We can. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do the most critical ones and leave the better ones that still have a little bit of life to them, and we will change them out probably as we go. And I'm figuring over the next 3 or 4 years they'll probably be gone anyway. So that's one of our most exciting projects we have going on. Oh, the freezer project, an update on that. They're actually hanging our new HVAC stuff on the inside, actual refrigeration. So they got the fans up today. They will be wiring and doing a few things. And then we actually have the boxes up. I did not realize how big that thing was until I walked in. It's wonderful. When we get it done, we'll have some pictures to show you guys and show you what we had. I've kind of kept some pictures along the way, kind of some befores and afters. That way we can show you what we had before to what our wonderful new stuff will be. Ms. Shauna is very, very excited about that. So the freezer should be done in the next week or so, and then it will be on to the coolers. So.
They have a generator for backing up.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
includes a generator. So if we have another Hurricane Laura type event, we will not lose all our.
And if you saw the news today, 25 named storms, 12 major storms, and 6 making landfall as their projections.
Hey, Mr. Shirley, two things. So I stopped by and I looked at the freezer, and it's literally the size of a house. It's huge. I was shocked, which I knew it was expensive. I knew we were spending a lot of money on it, but I didn't know it was that big.
It is, and the reason we went with the single instead of trying to go back with all the ones we have is we have redundancy. For instance, when we had the hurricane before I came, they had nowhere to store anything from the schools.
Right.
So 3/4 of that will be filled, then we have another quarter of that, it will be redundancy. If we have to go to Golden or Lakeview and pick up that food and bring it back, we have the ability to store it. And it's gonna be a lot more energy efficient, because we're going from 9 compressors down to 4.
Where's the location?
It's actually at our warehouse over, where food services is located. Yes, please, anybody that wants to stop in and look at it.
Especially on a hot day.
Look, it's impressive, it really is.
I don't know what I thought it looked like in there, but it looks like a Sam's Club. It's so neat, and everything's just stacked up, and
Look, her
so whoever
crew,
does that is wonderful.
Mr. Lonnie and Mr. Judd, she has 2 hardworking individuals.
Very impressive.
They are impressive.
Other thing, did you get any answers on the lighting at Weaver? I know the day we talked about it last month at the board meeting, there was something wrong that they were,
Okay, not only that, we're changing some of those to LED. That's actually over in the county right now for the view.
good deal. Thank you so much.
We are upgrading those. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Shirley. Board, if you would indulge me a question or two from Mr. Mike Stewart. He has no knowledge that this is coming to him or at him right now. So I'm waking him up back now. Talk to us about your program. Selection criteria, any changes, equipment, getting in some new stuff?
No changes on that. They have to fill out an application, write a group essay. This is why they're applying for the Industrial Manufacturing Technology Corps.
Okay, when is that cut off?
I don't know that it does. You'll have to check with Ms. Pinkley. You know,
What I'm saying is we need to probably beef up that advertising.
Right. But the plans are, unless something changes, I've been told that we're moving over to Dixie. We'll be leaving Acton Central. It'll be a 3-hour course. It'll be first and second block. And they're going to try to turn this into a 3-semester program with like an associate's degree at the end in industrial manufacturing technology.
Yes, sir. And I knew you and I talked about that. If you could say that a little louder for our public to hear, that you're looking at targeting it for a 3-semester course.
That's
with
what
a
I've been
potential-
told. That's
with a
been
potential
been
associate,
told.
with a potential associate degree at the end of it.
Correct. We picked up another manufacturing partner this week, which gives us 12 manufacturing partners now. We started off with 5 last August, and by word of mouth, and that has knocked us out of restrictions, they came to us, and a lot of large ones. We know about the IPs and the warehouses and the alliances, and we now have kids out of this first cohort actually working at most of those places. We got one that's going to Dixie and finish up the A&T electrical program. We got 2 that'll be finishing up their level 3 welding. The 2 welders, I'm almost positive, is going to wind up at warehouses. Not sure about the electrical. Then, of course, y'all know Dina's going to LSU for environmental engineer. Dina already is locked in with IP Mansfield. Allie Cozad will be her female mentor. To her
I was wondering why you were pointing at Mike.
Yeah.
That explains it.
But we're gonna wind up, looks like having 100% placement when they get through their education. Well, we know for a fact.
Okay, so we're looking at that this year. When are we looking to expand it to, say, 30 kids?
We're looking at expanding to 15 this year. Again, Mr. Benfield, it just goes, I've got to play that year by year and year by year, because there's only so many I can protect in the shop while we're actually working on equipment. And when you're running 10-ton presses and vertical drill presses and all the tools that we have, you gotta keep them all in close quarters so I can keep an eye on them.
And you're going to a new location.
We're going to a new location.
Upset
I had
conditions.
an email from Ms. Gilmore this evening just before I got here. Working with Dr. Kaz over at Dixie, we've got to restructure that, and I know all y'all be in the A&T lab. The millwright part will be in the back right corner by the back roll-up door. We got to get over there between now and time school starts and build a shop. We got to move all of our heavy-duty work tables, with our bices and stuff, our presses and all that, over into that building to create that shop.
So you don't have to haul trailer loads of stuff out this year?
Well, yeah. I've done cleaned up all the junk that was over.
That's what I mean.
Been there for years and
Yeah.
years. And so we'll start bringing in our new stuff to work on.
Okay.
I've already had another call from IP Mansfield today. I've got a meeting in Red River, Dr. Kaz and I next week. And I've already talked to Mr. Spears at Warehouser. Of course, Warehouser has been one of our biggest sponsors and supporters, along with IP Mills Alliance and whatnot. So we've got a lot of people just stepping up to support us because we need the equipment that is actually in their mills and plants
To work on.
so I can teach them what they need to know. Because some of these students are choosing where they want to work early on, because all the HR departments come and they spend the day discussing what they have to bring to the table. We talk about benefit packages for all the ones, gain sharing, all the things, Mr. Bill, you know, coming from the HR side. And these companies actually compete against each other for who can get the most amount of kids. Because every one of them will tell you they cannot hire young adults with the experience in precision maintenance that these young people have when they graduate.
Mr. Stewart, I appreciate, I know this board appreciates all what you've done. I know this is a labor of love for you, but it's also a lot of hard work. And you don't get the thanks that you need, and I'm gonna tell you thank you.
Well, it ain't about me. We've got 3,500 now and 63 jobs, hourly jobs, from Mansfield Mill to Royal Market. It needs to be manned every day, and nobody's full. What these young people are learning, of course, we need to get a little bit curriculum math, because first thing we have to do is learn to live to the right side of the decimal. Because everything in the world precision plus or minus 2,000. So once we get there, then we can move on in pretty rapid pace.
Mike, how many students do we have coming from Lakeview?
I think I have 5 on the list. We had a really big night. And we had welcomed the new principal and all. After our meeting that night, I had several come to me. We actually have 2 females signed up this year, one from Lakeview, one from Mackie Central. And it's like I told Mr. Benfield, some of the rest of y'all, in my years of recruiting and retention, it's been really hard for me to recruit minorities and females to give them a $100,000 a year job. Last year we had Dina, this year we got 2 females, and I can't wait to get started.
And we're having to bus them to the campus.
Last year we did, because all of my seniors from Lakeview all had cars and driver's licenses, they drove every day.
You have students from NPTCC in his?
I mean, we didn't have any, we had one apply last year, but they couldn't get his schedule. And they had the same opportunity, but we're just not getting them to sign up from there. I'd love to have them. And I told Miss Pinky and Miss Gilmore, I'd be more than glad to go over there and spend the day recruiting.
that's a great idea. I mean, I think it's a great idea.
But eventually, we're gonna work our way down to the middle school, the 8th graders.
Mhm.
And I talked to a couple of the principals, and they're all for it. Please come talk to my 8th graders.
Get their parents there too.
True. Any more questions?
Mr. Jordan, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, informational reports, Ms. Phelps, can you take
Item 6A, discuss and consider approval of Effective Schools Grant, the Rapides Foundation, Ms. Church, and C. McClellan.
So we have been approved for the grant funding from the Rapides Foundation for that Effective Schools Grant. It's $142,000 for 12 months. It starts July 1st of this year and it ends June 30th of 2025. So we would really like to get your approval to be awarded the grant because we're going to use that grant for some of our new teacher events that we're going to do here in July. So what we proposed was that it would be used for 3 content areas this year to improve student growth in those 3 areas of math, science, and social studies. There were several categories for that. Some of the funding will be used for new teacher in service for all 3 content areas. So when we have new teachers coming into the district, they'll be able to go to these training sessions. They'll be more equipped to enter their classroom to start the year. We're also going to use some funding for professional development in math around illustrative math coaching. And then also with the new Act 260, with the numeracy training that's required for all our math teachers, a lot of the funding is going to be used there. They all have to have that training by August 1st of 2025. So this helps support us there. Another piece of that is going to be science and social studies professional development for our current teachers. We'll be selecting teachers to participate to develop assessments that are aligned with LEAP and our standards to kind of give other teachers an item bank, having some more questions. So that funding will help us with that cohort of teachers. 20% of our math specialist salary, 20% of the grant will be used for her salary. And then some portion of the funding will go to aspiring leaders and new teacher induction. So if y'all can vote next board meeting to approve that, then we would be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Item 6B, discuss and consider MOU between NSU and NPSB.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll take that one. That is, I just went the wrong direction. That is actually the same MOU that we've had with them for a while. It's just an update of that, and nothing really except the boilerplate that's been there. If you want to look through it and see what that's about, it's mainly about our dual enrollment pieces.
And college.
Yes.
Thank you for that update. Item 6C, discuss and consider approving an MOU between LSU Ag Center and NPSB. Mr. Benefield.
Thank you, Ms. Phelps. This is the annual MOU. We had a wonderful presentation by Ms. Pierce last month, and we'd like to continue the great relationship we have with 4-H in this community.
Thank you very much. Item 6D, discuss and consider approving winning bid for NCHS AC renovation project to store services. Mr. Wasco.
I'll hand this off to
Okay, as you see, Store Services is our winning bidder for this project, and that is central to the ESSER funds, who asked permission for you guys to approve this and move on. We understand we only have $1 million that we've been approved for, and the bid is $1,144,936. So we understand that there will be a few left off of this.
And the store understands that they will get up to $1,140,000. It could be less, so they understand this.
Yeah, so we kind of prepared for the loss.
That was pretty close, good.
It was pretty close, surprisingly close.
We estimated more.
Yeah, we actually estimated more. Yeah.
Maybe Central is the only school at this time that's needing AC replacement, major.
Currently, no ma'am, we have problem solved, which is a lot bigger project Nathan Central is just to the point where we can actually break it down individually from what we thought we were gonna get from ESSER to what we have now. So you can actually break it apart. When we do something like problem solving, that's gonna be a complete redo. There is no being able to do a quarter of it, half of it. When it's done, it's gonna have to go start to finish from can to can, so the whole entire project will have to be one. So this way with Nathan Central, they have so many units, we can break it down to the allotted unit. Everywhere else is actually pretty good scale. So we have 2 schools that are pretty bad. Nathan Central, some of the units are 25 years old. There are 22.
Thank you for that update, and that concludes finance report.
Thank you, Ms. Phelps.
You're welcome.
Mr. Davis.
Discuss and consider appointment of school board representative for the parish-wide ITEP board.
If you remember during the LSBA, Governor Landry was very adamant about these companies that are applying for industrial tax exemptions to not have to go to the sheriff, not have to go to the school board, not have to go to the city, not have to go to all the different and make a different presentation. So what he's asked is that every community and every parish have an ITEP board, if you remember that. And so I would like for us as a school board to determine who would be the appropriate person for that board. Now, there's a couple of ways we could go. We can go with the school board president, or we can go with the superintendent. The board president rotates out usually annually. And so the person that attends it may or may not have the experience with these ITEPs. Now, it's going to remain 80-20. We will not lose any ground in that area. The LSBA, when it's in bargaining, said that we're not going to back down off that 80-20. But what I'd like the board to consider next week is the superintendent, naming the superintendent, and that would be my recommendation, has the school board representative to attend this meeting. Now, the superintendent would not make a decision for the board. The superintendent would represent the board at this ITEP meeting, which would include the sheriff, the city, or whoever else was necessary to be part of that ITEP application. And the superintendent and the board president, or whoever attended, would come back to the full board and report out as to what the agreement, what the ITEP is about. Essentially the same thing. So instead of them calling on us, we would essentially send a representative to a single meeting. So the process will not change, but it will be at a different location.
Would we still have to vote on our vote to give to him?
That's
to
correct.
be a vote?
And if we decide we're not going to do it, the ITEP application may fall apart.
Well, the problem, say if y'all vote against it, then
You would be the no vote.
I could be the no vote out and the rest would be all favorable, so it just kind of lessens, before we could just do it for us.
Right.
So now it's all or nothing. Well, 80 or 20, but it's still all or nothing for the.
And so it's really not changing, other than the fact that the representatives will assemble in one room as opposed to the company like Marco's and Alliance calling on each entity. And so I'm recommending that we send the superintendent simply because of continuity.
I think that's an excellent idea.
You know, and if the board president or vice president wants to attend, that's great, it's not a problem. It won't be an admission ticket at the door, so it won't be a problem. But I think we need to get this up and running very quickly because there's time fences that have to be met. If they come to us with an industrial tax exemption and we don't meet the time fence and this committee doesn't meet, then it automatically goes into effect. The good news is we can do this. I've already contacted the sheriff, the parish president, the mayor, and all the other entities. They know this is coming. So the education piece is what we want to do at the first meeting. We'll sit down and we'll talk with all of the different players, and they'll understand what's going to be required of each one of us. So if this does, and it will happen sooner or later, when this does, there will not be any kind of confusion. Second piece of that is and not necessarily the city may not be involved. The school board, we're essentially always going to be involved, but it just may be a parish thing. And that's why I'm recommending that we do the superintendent because of the continuity that's gonna carry from year to year. And another thing is the new ITEP rules have not been finalized. So if somebody came to us today, say a Marco, and said, I want to present you with an industrial tax exemption, an ITEP, they would have to follow the old rules, which would mean they have to go to all the different entities.
And the governor did an executive order, but he didn't put any of the policy in place.
Kind of like the ESAs. He said, we're going to have them, but we don't know what it's going to look like. So the rules are still being hammered out. So next week, I'd like us to really consider that.
So that's the industrial tax exemption parish board?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
that's what,
That's
I'm
correct.
just trying to figure out what's the.
Well, the ITEP is the Industrial Tax Exemption Program, and we will have an ITEP board.
Okay.
So it'll be two pieces.
Item 7B, discuss and consider adopting policy 814, student participation in non-athletic extracurricular programs. Mr. Benefield and Ms. Page.
So this is actually, it is, I put them on there, and Ms. Page, I'm sorry, I didn't call you to tell you I put you on there, but you were one of the folks who asked me to create this policy, and I had been in contact with you. So what we've had, really over the past 3 years, I think, we've had several instances of, I would call inequitable punishment. Students in a cheerleader and cusses. You know, we don't like that, but they get kicked off the cheerleading squad. You go out to the football field, kid does the same thing and
Everybody shrugs
shrugs his shoulders. And so what we wanted to do, if you remember last month you voted on the athletic policy, we wanted to have a consistent policy across the district that said, you know, how do you join an organization, and also how do you get punished in an organization? Because just take one high school, for instance, they may have 30 different organizations with 30 different constitutions. And, you know, it is hard for me to, when a parent calls me and says, well, my kid brought a knife to school so they got kicked off baseball, that makes sense, but they did something significantly worse and they're still on beta. I don't know, whatever it is, you know, and that's probably a bad explanation, but that's what was going on. The other part is we have several organizations that are national organizations that, and I can't stand that they do this, they provide flexibility on how to become a member. An example of which is Beta. You go to their national website, Beta says all you have to do is have criteria that deals with on grade level status.
Yeah, their constitution kind of varies. Yeah.
Exactly. So what we have is, we have one school in the district that utilizes leak tests, which is a perfectly usable piece of information for that. Then we have another school that only uses grades. It's actually a lesser form because sometimes grades can be a little more ambiguous, but perfectly okay. Well, what ends up happening is instead of parents looking at this and saying, okay, well, Dr. Eloy has given some autonomy to schools to make those decisions, instead they say, there's inconsistency in the parish, and if you go to this school, you get this benefit, and if you go to this school, you don't get that benefit. And so what we're trying to do is clean up and make it consistent across the board. There's also some situations where some schools have gone over and above the national requirements. They've said, you know, hey, the national requirement is 3.5, but we're going to go for a 4.0. Again, I don't have an issue with it, but what we're saying is we need consistency. So if you read the policy, we put all those things, try to address all those things. And when a school wants to go above and beyond, or they want to, or when the organization offers flexibility, what we're saying is we want to be consistent when we do that, and there will be, we already have the principal advisory committee. So say Goldana says you have to have a 4.0 to be in the National Honor Society, and Lakeview says you have to have a 3.8. That would be a discrepancy. It's brought to my attention. I bring it to the principal advisory committee. I talk it out with them. They give a recommendation, and we say from here on out, to be a National Honor Society, they say you only need a 3.5, but y'all went up to a 3.9 and a 4.0. We're going to say, we're going to just stick with the National Honor Society and say 3.5. That may be one outcome. Another outcome could be that we go with a 4.0. That will be a committee that determines the consistency amongst the parish. I will tell you, I think it's a really good policy, mainly because I wrote it. But the other piece is, this is going to be something that's going to take a little while, because we're going to present this, if you vote in the affirmative, we're going to present to principals on July 30th. One of the first things they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get copies of all the constitutions of all their organizations, make sure that they're consistent and that there's not punishment for one organization that trumps another one. Also, make sure that all their organizations are aligned with the student handbook. But then the next piece will be, then we have to make sure there's alignment between clubs in different schools. And some of that is going to take time, and some of it we won't even realize until a problem arises. But now we will have a mechanism to address the problems, instead of just saying, literally when these things happened last year, I said, they can do that. It's allowed. We don't have a policy. And they can do that over there. They're allowed. It's a policy. This will at least allow us to navigate when those situations come up. And I think provide equity to all students and make sure parents don't believe that there's inconsistencies parish-wide. If you're in a district of 60 schools, this probably wouldn't be a problem. But parents are obviously going to call up their friend who lives down the street and say, well, Magnet does it this way, NGH does it this way, and Lab does it this way. And they don't like that. And I see their point.
I received some calls based on this exact type of thing, and this page brought it to our attention too. We started talking about the grade point average and the behavior of what happens to the policy. So these things just kind of have flown and flowed downhill, and so we asked the superintendent to look at it, and he came up, this is a really good policy.
Now, the one last thing you'll see that may make you wince is all I did was take the grade point average and all that information from the athletic policy. So I know we already had the discussion about a 1.5 and 2.0, but because you voted to keep the 1.5, obviously they're not going to be in beta with a 1.5. That's the district minimum. And so we just did that to have consistency between sports and athletic events. And then obviously there's some gray area, because I consider dance line and cheerleading a sport, but LHSAA doesn't look at them in the same way as, like, you know, baseball and softball and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and so the Constitution debate and whatever, 1.5 won't get you there.
no. And again, those 1.5s are currently not an issue. Kids who have 1.5 typically are not participating in these things because they're having other issues. But it also allows kids who are on that bubble to participate in something that may help them grow as a student.
Okay.
President, please, ma'am.
Board members, do we have anything else that we need to address? I want to thank all the board members and the superintendent and Ms. Rebels for wearing their orange shirt. It's a late pride. I hope Mr. Stepp gets a smile on his gator this year as opposed to a frown. I'm not sure if that will happen. But we will see you next Tuesday